Manus flat on the canvas. We are ready to rock and roll. Second round of action. There is a cut on Manus.
Yeah.
Martial arts chat.
My man B-Hop, he got dropped out the ring last night. I need a little judo baby. And let's do it, Ron. Let's give me a...
See what telling me this? You got a face for radio.
That's got a face for radio.
That's nice.
Martial arts chat.
Hello and welcome to the Martial Arts Chat podcast. On the roundtable this evening, we're looking ahead to UFC 235. It takes place at the T-Mobile Arena, headlined by John Jones and Anthony Smith. Today's panel will also be answering your fan questions and comments. You can continue to hit me up during the live stream. I'm on Twitter at Martial Arts Chat or on Facebook, facebook.com/Martial Arts Chat. Before I introduce tonight's panel, just a quick shout out to our sponsors, A1 Fight Gear. A1 Fight Gear use the latest cutting edge boxing gloves for professional and amateur fighters, gym enthusiasts and kickboxers. So local and national gyms in the UK, do yourselves a favour, go check out a1fightgear.com. And if you're wanting to get into shape, get back into shape or keep trimming the fat off, go to beastgear.co.uk and use the coupon code MartialArtsChat. If you do that, you'll save 15% off your purchases for course sliders, straps, barbell pads, all sorts of strength and conditioning programs to suit your needs at all levels. And finally, we're also sponsored by new sponsor Martial Arts Television. Be sure to check them out on Facebook or on Twitter. And so to our panel this evening, returning to the show from the MMA Power Hour, it's Mr. Colin Crandall. Colin, how are you doing, sir?
Doing very well, John. Glad to be here. How are you?
A pleasure, man, and a pleasure to have you on once again. Thanks for cluing us up in my Gracie history lesson prior to the show, mate.
Absolutely glad to do it.
Looking forward to getting this for you, mate. MMA Fight Bible, my brother from another mother, Chris Allen. Chris, how you doing, sir?
Hi, John. Yep, good. Hope you're well. Yeah, looking forward to another great show of you. Looking forward to chatting about UFC 235, and yeah, can't wait to get cracking.
Awesome stuff, man. And always awesome is Juice MMA Zone with Mr. Victor Vargas, iFox with Juice podcast as well. How are you, sir?
What's going on, John? Just happy to be on here, man. Looking forward to talking about all this.
We've got lots to get into. Before we get fanic questions, let's jump straight in with Robbie Lawler and Ben asking us finally. He in the UFC gets ruthless for his UFC debut. I just can't wait to see how it goes down, man. So I know there was a glow around Victor's face, so that's where I'm going to start with this one. Askren versus Lawler, mate. How's it going down?
Okay, all right. So I hadn't thought much of the matchup. Actually, this whole time, I've just been wanting Robbie to win, and I'm going to go with Robbie for the win. And the only thing I can think of is just I'm trying to... Obviously, it's not easy for Robbie Lawler to have a boring fight. Even if you look at like the second Johnny Hendricks fight, which was kind of boring. Even in that last round, he just wouldn't let him have. He wouldn't let him have his. Even though it looked like he might lose, he still was gonna go out with a bang. So I just don't think a guy like Askren. He may have some moments, but I don't think he can do enough to actually beat him. I think it's going to look a lot like the first Rory McDonald fight, the one that nobody remembers.
Right.
Rory was jabbing and trying to take him down, and to some success, sometimes with no success. And, in the third round, he just ended up getting his ass whooped. So I think he's just going to neutralize him at points, maybe get taken down at others, but I think he's going to go hard in the third round and TKO him.
Fair play, mate. Fair play. Let's get the rest of the panel's thoughts. Let's get Colin on this one. Colin, give me your thoughts on this welterweight contest, sir.
I've been going back and forth a bit on this, guys. Initially, when it was announced, I felt like Askren was just going to come in and ragdoll Robbie because of the fact that Askren's, on this tear, 18-0, and Robbie has lost 2 out of his last 4, I believe. And so my thinking was like that, but as the last few weeks since it was announced have gone by, I've been reconsidering that. And, I am thinking that Robbie indeed does have a chance here, better than the odds makers are showing. I would say this. I would say that this is a fight that, you would call like no action. if you were looking at people that were trying to wager on it, not trying to make this a sports betting show, but just to throw that out there, because of the fact that it's really basically going to be decided on who gets there first. Can Robbie touch him at all and hurt him, or is Ben's just going to be too fast with the shot? So I mean, what I think is going to happen is Ben is going to have to try to throw hands a little bit, but he's going to have to be really, really careful. If he throws hands a little bit, has Robbie slowed down a little bit over the years? He has. And so if it were 6 or 7 years ago, I'd say if Ben threw hands with Robbie at all, Robbie catches him, and it could be all over. Now I think Ben could be a little bit quicker, a little bit better reflexes, much less miles on him. Robbie's probably going to have a hard time touching him. And it's going to be just a question of how much Ben can come in and ragdoll Robbie. I would favor still Ben Askren, but I'm actually thinking that Robbie could very well win, and I may change my mind on this and announce something different on my show or in social media later. But right now, I think Ben, but in a fight that's really could go either way.
It's true. I appreciate your honesty, mate. But it was Victor. It's true what you're saying about not thinking about the fight. If I really think about it, neither have I. Like, what's been in mind is the fact that Askren's making his debut, that press conference, and all the back and forth between him and Dana. Yeah, this is crazy, but the last thing on my mind has been the actual fight itself. Until you pointed it out, that's mad, man. Yeah, I'm fence sitting on this one though, for sure.
Yeah,
okay, I'm with you. I'm not giving you a pick, but Chris, I'm going to come to you, man. Chris, tell me your thoughts. Who have you got in this one?
Well, this is actually the fight personally I'm most looking forward to, John. Out of all the three, I've been looking forward to see Ben Askren finally make his debut in the UFC. I watched an interview with him recently, and he was saying he was going to come into the UFC a little while ago when he made his transition from Bellator to ONE. He was coming to the UFC, and he was told he had to fight at the World Series of Fighting before actually having a fight in the UFC. Yep. And according to him, that all fell through, and then he went to ONE FC, had a massive tear there, and so after a really up and down journey, a messy journey really, he's finally in the UFC. Him and Dana White seem to have actually put their differences aside for once. Yep. It seems like they're becoming friends. At the press conference, they were thumbs-upping each other. I don't know how much of that's true, but, and... So Ben Askren coming into the UFC, everyone is saying, Askren's going to win this one. He's taking this one easy. This is just a nice warm-up fight for him. But what everyone's forgetting is he actually hasn't faced anyone at the same caliber as Robbie Lawler. Maybe you could say Douglas Lima, like in Bellator. Yeah. But at the moment, this is the toughest test to date. He's fighting someone who isn't going to give up, who's going to keep grinding away. He's going to keep coming forward. And he does have that knockout power. Robbie Lawler could knock out anyone. Yeah. Previously, he has been showing he is being dragged a distance, winning here and there, up and down career, winning by split decision, unanimous decision, and narrowly losing most of the time as well. But Robbie Lawler, you can never count him out. He's put on two of the most memorable fights in UFC history with him versus Rory the second time, and also the Carlos Condit fight. So it'd be interesting to see how Ben Askren does against someone who has, I'd like to say more. Well, I'll say definitely has more experience. And it'd be interesting to see how he handles that, especially with the power. And if Robbie Lawler can successfully stuff the takedown from Askren, what will happen then? And the big question is, which no one's even thinking about, is what happens if Ben Askren does actually lose this fight? What happens now?
Great question.
Is he another one of Dana White's experiment protege he's bringing into the UFC? I know he's a bit more experienced than your Sage Northcutts and Mickey Galls. But is he going to bring someone else into the UFC and they're going to get defeated straight away? We'll see what happens.
It's a great question, man, and the questions will be answered come fight night. Co-main event also sees a welterweight fight, and it's for the title. Tyron Woodley defends against Kamaru Usman. For me, this is Woodley's all day long, man. I don't see it being any other way. Let's hear the panel's thoughts. We'll start with Chris this time. Chris, who you got on this one? Woodley versus Usman.
So this one I've got. By the way, I didn't say the last one. The last one I sort of said, Askren's going to take it by decision. By the way, that was my last one. After talking all that, sorry about that. So now this one I've got Tyron Woodley coming through with a win, and I actually believe he's not going to go to the full round. He is going to take the knockout at some point. Kamaru Usman's not the sort of.
Sorry.
Hello.
I lost you for a moment. Sorry about that.
No, we got you, man. We got you.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Good.
Yeah, sorry. So what I'm saying. So Kamaru Usman's he's not the sort of fighters that Tyron Woodley's been fighting recently. Have been hanging back because they know his style. It might not be the fan favorite sort of style, but that's the way Woodley fights. He counter punches. But in Kamaru Usman, he's going to find someone who's going to be going forward quite a lot. He was going to be putting a lot of pressure on, and he's going to be throwing a lot of punches and kicks. But this is actually, I feel, going to be the downfall of Usman because Woodley is waiting for someone to do that. Everyone who's ever done that against him has been caught with the big right or the big left, and it's been night-night. So I'm saying Tyron Woodley by knockout in second round.
Oh, fair play, man. Good shout. Hey, Colin, how about you? Welterweight titles on the line. Who are you going for in this one, mate?
Well, one thing I'd love to point out, it would be, think about this. Askren and Woodley have been friends since the college days at Missouri.
Yes.
And, they've trained together for probably a dozen years. And, in fact, I remember seeing them both on a Halloween episode of Inside the MMA where they were dressed in Halloween costumes. It was really funny. That's just, I think it was maybe not 10 years ago, maybe 8, 9 years ago. But anyway, one thing, not to drag out this answer, is that do you wonder a bit, would Askren perhaps be cheering or silently hoping for Usman to win this fight? Because they've stated they're not going to fight each other, Woodley and Askren. And Askren is in the UFC to go all the way. His goal will be the gold for sure, but not if Tyron Woodley is going to be holding it. So you almost wonder if under his breath he's secretly cheering against his friend, because then that would mean he would be able to possibly progress and proceed to a title fight sometime soon. Anyway, the matchup is a real interesting one. Usman has really been showing his talent and skill as a wrestler, but not a lot of great striking. But he is kind of a tall, rangy fighter. He's 3 inches taller than Woodley. But I do think Woodley has better hands. Woodley's a really good guy. He, was on my MMA Power Hour show, and I tend to cheer for people that are on my show. And he was a very good guy and polite and a gentleman. So I do believe he's going to win. I want him to win. I believe he's got the greater power. Usman would have to have the greatest strategy ever to be able to somehow beat Woodley. Is it possible? Yes, but I don't think so. I think Woodley takes Usman out by the end of the first round.
Fair play, man. That's a good shout. Good shout. Victor, who you got for this one, amigo? Welterweight crowns on the line.
Yeah, I think Colin and Chris nailed it on the head. I mean, both had different points, but yeah, I'm going with Woodley here too. I think this is just a bad style matchup for Usman, plain and simple. I don't understand that whole, to take it back a little bit, when the fight was announced, it was supposed to be Colby, and then, he got stripped, or we don't even know if he's stripped, and he's trying to sue him, and Dana White's piece of shit for not keeping his word, and whatever happened to poor conservative MAGA-loving fucking Colby Covington, whatever. But
there we go.
It's funny. It's funny because I know everyone. I think Colby's hate, how polarizing he is, how much people hate him, blind their it makes them really biased. I'm not gonna go out and say that Colby could beat Woodley, but I would say that I think he'd have a better shot of beating him than Usman. I just think it's a weird triangle between these three, because these are the two most deserving contenders. But
yes,
I think Usman just is a bad I think Woodley's a bad style matchup for Usman, because he does everything that Usman does, everything that Woodley does, but Woodley does it better. And I just think if he's gonna wrestle, it's gonna be hard for me to see him taking Woodley down. And if he does, I mean, I don't think it'll be for a long time. I don't think he's gonna keep him down. And striking, he may be a little bit more diversified in that realm, but Woodley's got power. He knows how to use it, and he doesn't need to strike much. I mean, we've seen him just kind of plotting and kind of staring at opponents, and look at fights like Darren Till. We thought he was supposed to be a superior striker, and he still dropped his ass. So I just think any way you cut it, I think Usman's kind of screwed here. I don't think he'll be able to take him down. I think he's going to lose a kickboxing match. So, I think I'm going to go with a second round TKO as well. And then also, TKO seems more likely, but we also got to remember, like in the Darren Till fight, that Darce choke he hit him with is maybe one of the nicest Darces I've ever seen in MMA history. So
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he could pull that out of the bag if he really wants to, shine on him a little bit.
He's got subs in his repertoire, that's for sure. I know he never got it against Wonderboy Thompson, but we all saw the strain on that neck. Yeah, man, it was nasty. So he's got that in his arsenal for sure. Let's never forget that. Main event though, let's move there. John Jones, hopefully clean and controversy free. Fingers crossed, man. You know what he's like. He's defending against Anthony the Lionheart Smith. Victor, I know we've spoken a few times about weight cuts, middleweights like Smith doing the right thing. As recently as last night, actually, Thiago Santos, now playing his trade at light heavyweight, finding lots of success. But Smith's run here in the light heavyweight division, potentially taking the title, but can he do it against Jones? That's the question. Victor, we'll start with you, mate. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Thiago Santos, a man who actually beat Anthony Smith. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, two of the top contenders now, and within a year, that's how bad light heavyweight is. And then even look at guys like Johnny Walker, who's good. I mean, I'm on the hype train too. I love him. But 2 fights in, and look what he's doing, man. Just light heavyweight is bad. People, if you can get up there, just get up there, man. I don't know what Rockhold's been waiting, man. He's talking all this shit, and he still not going up. Anyway, to the fight, John Jones. Yeah, it's kind of hard to come up with like a unique take on this. John Jones has fought people like Anthony Smith before. Glover Teixeira comes to mind, Rampage, hard-hitting dudes with some submissions. He reminds me a lot of Glover. But the thing is, I was going to say, he's got experience on him, but so did Glover. I would feel a lot more comfortable in picking Smith if Jones had been struggling a bit. Like DC had his moments in the rematch, inevitably got knocked out. But if that was more recent, here's the crazy thing about John that I just kept repeating after he beat Gustafsson in his last fight. He had a layoff, didn't seem to affect him at all. So that's crazy in it of itself. And Gustafsson and DC are much different fighters, and you'd think he'd have its own unique set of problems fighting either of them. But DC fought them both well, and he fought Gustafsson, the guy who gave him the worst fight of his career. He fought him even better than even DC. So at this point, I just don't know how John doesn't see everything that Smith is doing, how he doesn't adjust to it. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he gets rocked or I mean, I don't think Jones has ever been dropped in his career, but I'm sure he can land something. But I don't think he can follow up on stuff. Smith is still a little sloppy with the striking sometimes, and unless you got some pinpoint accuracy, some, like Anderson Silva in his prime, like laser precision, I don't think you're going to do much to him. So begrudgingly going with Jones here. As far as the drug test and all the other stuff, who the hell knows what's going to happen at this point, man? I mean, they basically gave him a license to do whatever he wants. And then here's the interesting thing that I didn't know until a few days ago, that this license for this fight, it's only for this fight. He doesn't have like a permanent license in Nevada.
That's right.
He has like a 1-fight license deal. So who knows what's going to happen there, but... Who knows what's going to happen there, but I hope California doesn't sanction it again if some last-minute shit happens.
It's fucking ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, I hear what you're saying about that was a good comparison with Glover Teixeira. I feel the same. There's a huge part of me, it feels like Smith is just making up the numbers. But then, we've been watching this thing long enough to know that it's MMA, and that's the beauty of it, man. That's why we love it so much, because anything can happen. And I'm hoping, really, more than anything else, that something does happen. Nothing to do with Jones. I'm just hoping that he's not there just to make up the numbers. But yeah, man, I totally hear you. Colin, what about you? Is it Jones or is it Smith in this one for you, sir?
Well, both of those names are the most common surnames in the United States. I'm not sure if you guys knew overseas, but that's kind of funny. The Smith and the Jones name, I think you'll find more people in the United States with those last names or surnames, as you call them. So it is a bit funny. In fact, there was a TV show years ago, Smith and Jones something. Anyway, I actually do hope the same thing happens and the card is brought to California, Los Angeles, because I live there. So that would be absolutely great. I could just make my way, buy the tickets cheap as I did last time. The only thing is, I think that the other people this time in this big card would protest, and I think they wouldn't allow it. I think Woodley would say, no, we're staying right here in Vegas. But anyway, here's what I'll say on that. I do think that Santos may be the man to beat Jones. And I think that Johnny Walker also has a lot of potential. Yeah. I think less so Anthony Smith, but I may be wrong. I feel like that performance we saw against Gustafsson may be the best John Jones we ever see again. And there's nothing really to prove this. He's still fairly young for his weight division, very young. But I just have a funny feeling. What I think is this: I think that Smith is going to present some interesting challenges for Jones that no one else really has in the past, except for Cormier. And I think the difference is that Smith is only an inch or so shorter than Jones. Even though Jones took out Gustafsson without too much problem here, he has had problems with these taller, lankier fighters. That seems to be something that throws him a bit. I do think that when he took Gustafsson down, that essentially ended the fight. Other than that, he was winning by a bit. He was edging Gustafsson, but not so much. It was kind of a stalemate of a fight. I think that he kind of lulled Gustafsson into the false sense of security, making him feel that he was going to keep on standing, and then he took him down, and Gustafsson was either so surprised, or it's also one thing you guys might know in American wrestling, it's a lot easier to injure your legs during takedowns. So it's possible that Gustafsson was a bit injured as soon as he hit the ground. I don't know. Or maybe his jiu-jitsu isn't really that tight. But I believe this. I believe in this fight, Anthony Smith has confidence in standing and striking with Jones. I think he also knows that Jones is probably going to want to use his wrestling, so he will expect it's coming. I don't think Jones is going to easily take Smith down. And I think if he does, Smith is going to be ready to scramble up unless somehow he's hurt during the takedown. But I think his jiu-jitsu is tight, and I think he's going to be ready. I think he's young. I think he's hungry. And I think he really wants to prove that he shouldn't be an 8-1 underdog or whatever it is. So I think it'll be a really interesting fight, and I think it will give some insight to Thiago Santos as to what to do should he fight Jones and maybe Walker. I think Jones does get by Smith, but I wouldn't be surprised if the upset happens. I think it'll be a much more competitive fight than the numbers show and that people are feeling. So I go for Jones, but I think it may actually be a late round stoppage or a decision. And I wouldn't bet on these odds. It's ridiculous. You bet $900 to win $100. And, yeah, right. So, so I would actually say Smith could be an interesting bet. Although, like I said, I don't think he'll be the man. He could, but I think I'll say this: between Smith, Santos, and Walker, I'm going to say I believe one of them will beat John Jones.
Wow. Interesting, mate. Interesting. Chris, your thoughts? Is it and still or and new?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be and still. I think that's the obvious choice at the moment, especially see how the betting's going. But it's easy for me to sit here and big up John Jones's career and how well he's done. But, if you actually have a look at Anthony Smith's, what he's done recently, as you were saying earlier, John, I don't really believe he is filling the numbers, if you see what I mean. I think he has earned this quite well. So in his last three fights, he managed to beat two former UFC world champions in Rashad Evans, who arguably actually retired Rashad Evans. Rashad was on the way out, don't get me wrong, and then he beat Shogun as well, quite dominantly as well. And then his most previous fight against Volkan, obviously Volkan put him to the test big time there. He actually showed what he can do, and he is dragged to at least the third round and managed to pull off a nice submission. So it shows he can submit people, seeing as he's been knocking out people left, right and centre since he's turned up in the UFC. the interesting thing is that he's got a title shot before Thiago Santos, and Santos has actually beaten Smith, as you said before. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, especially if Smith does lose his fight. Does he fight Santos, or does Santos get Jones straight away? But that's like a completely different question altogether. But what I do like about Anthony Smith is that he has got the ability to knock Jones out, but Jones just has too much skill. He just keeps getting better and better, I feel, and I feel he will take this one by decision. Or if not, he will finish him, because I feel he will go to his wrestling. He won't take the risk of standing on the feet. He may go 1 or 2 rounds on the feet, and if Smith does land anything at all, Jones will revert to his wrestling and on the ground and finish it. So let's go fourth round referee stoppage.
Well said, mate. Well said. Final part of the show, guys. My favourite answering fan questions. Just remind the panel of the one rule. Don't have to wait your turn. The floor is yours, guys. Let's jump straight into Facebook. Got Mr. Kevin Jones, my man, who's asking, has Usman been one of the most avoided fighters?
I'd say so. I mean, nobody wanted to fight him. Nobody of note anyway. It seems like the last 2 or 3 opponents that fought him were almost forced to do so.
Was Colby not calling for that fight? Colby Covington? Was he calling for it?
I think that was the whole problem, was that he said, I'm not going to fight that guy. I'm already from champ. They were trying to make that fight, I think, beforehand. And it's like, well, I already beat Dos Anjos. And, say what you want about Colby. He does have a good point. The last 2 wins of Usman's record, which everyone says is most impressive, Colby already did. Yeah. He beat Maia before him, and he beat Dos Anjos before him. And Usman also took him to a decision. So it's not like you can say, oh, well, he knocked him out when I couldn't, or he submitted him when I couldn't. It was the exact same thing. So I don't know. I think I'm not going to say Usman is overrated. Obviously, he has a very good record, and people didn't want to fight him for a reason, mostly because they're going to look bad against him. But yeah, I just think I'm starting to think that he may be like the Joe Benavidez of welterweight. I think he can be the number 2 guy for a while. I think he'll. I'm not even saying this to make fun of him.
No, really. I know.
I do think he is that good. I think he can beat almost anybody, but I just don't think he's got anything for Woodley. I think somebody could beat Woodley. I don't think it's gonna be him, and I think he's gonna have to wait for somebody to come through. I would like to see him. Honestly, I'd like to see him against Askren. If you guys were saying earlier, if Usman wins and Askren beats Lawler, and they I'd like to see that fight, because I think it'd be an interesting fight, but I just don't think he's got anything for Woodley.
So we're jumping in here just randomly, John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you don't have to wait your turn.
Okay, cool. So as you know, they also have bad blood, Victor. That was well stated. One of the things that's a strange thing is that in the Wikipedia, I think Usman is also known as Marty. And Ben Askren has insisted that he was living in Nebraska. He spent, I think, either most or all of his life in the United States. And he was really pretty much known as Marty when he trained in Nebraska. And so he started throwing out this Marty from Nebraska thing, which was making Usman mad. I don't know whether he was trying to imply that using the name Kamaru is deceptive or ridiculous, or just changing gears to try to seem like he's more authentic, African or something like that. when he's really Marty from Nebraska, right? Is kind of where Askren is coming from. And I think Usman doesn't appreciate that, because, of course, it is his right to embrace his background. I think his family's from Nigeria. He may have been born there. But the funny thing is, if you guys saw that video where they were all backstage, a lot of the guys from UFC 235, I think it was after the press conference, right? And then he says to Dana, "You're not going to sit me and Marty next to each other, are you?"
He's always
And then he comes over and says, "Do I know you?" He says, "I don't know you." I says, "Yeah, I do. We used to hang out. We would hang out at the Olympic Training Center. Remember?" And then he said, "Don't say that." So you wonder, though, is it? I mean, it's just kind of a funny thing, but apparently Usman is really pissed and doesn't want to embrace any of that. And it's be interesting to see really how much time they really did spend hanging out or whatever. But in any case, that would be an interesting fight. And I will tell you that if somehow Usman gets by Woodley, Askren gets by Robbie, then he will go in there pushing, screaming to get that fight. Now, I think I've forgotten the question already. The question is, who's going to be avoided? No,
Avoided,
yeah. I think so. I don't think that Woodley or Covington were avoiding Usman, but I sure think probably a lot of other people were. Yeah, Damian Maia stepped up, I think, on short notice to fight him, so that shows the courage of Damian Maia. But, most avoided, very possibly so. Yeah, people probably didn't want to face Usman, so, yeah, I can embrace that.
Fair play, man. Let's move on, because I want to get through as much as possible before we wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so. John McGowan on Facebook says, after last week's result, Kane's knee popped before the uppercut, and then Francis landed the uppercut, and his knee totally gave out. He fell awkwardly, and this is according to his coach, Javier Mendez. He wouldn't have went down if it wasn't for his knee popping beforehand. Therefore, it's an injury rather than a TKO. Kane was never out. Wow, man, there you go.
But if Kane was never out,
John's got it all sussed.
Why did he cover his face? Why did he cover his head and face so much? What? He wasn't TKO'd.
Fair question.
This is the new Stipe tapped, Overeem felted type shit, man. Like, at this point, it's like I don't care, man. I said on my podcast that I was a bad Mexican. I went against Kane. I was picking Ngannou, not because I dislike Kane, not because I like Ngannou. I was being totally, I guess you could say, objective. But my main thing is, well, I don't like anyone coming off a layoff, especially a layoff that long. And secondly, I just don't like he's got bad juju. He headlined the first Fox event, got knocked out in a minute. Headlines the first ESPN event, gets knocked out in 30 seconds. It's just like, I just don't think it works out for him. And in both times, the Fox event was in Anaheim, close, in California, SoCal, heavily Mexican crowd. And this one was in Phoenix, heavily Mexican crowd. They were all there to see him. And he just shit the bed. I mean, it's not his fault the injury goes after him, but he's a fragile Mexican. There's plenty of them around. So I've been getting a lot of hate this week for saying that. And for people that doubt me, it's not just Kane. Dominic Cruz, Alexa Grasso, Yair Rodriguez. A lot of these Mexicans just can't hold it together, man. I don't know what it is.
What? I'd never noticed until now.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead. Since I talk so much, why don't you go, Chris?
No, you go ahead, Colin. Don't worry. I think he basically wraps it all up there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, do you want me to go on?
He left me speechless there. He left me speechless there, to be fair.
You sure? Okay. John, do you want me to...
It was the Mexican hate. You can't follow that Mexican hate.
I know. I'm just sitting here thinking about all the poor Mexicans getting injured. I'm thinking, which one's actually got injured? I'm sitting there thinking, no one's ever shut me up like that before.
I know, right? But I think Victor's being humble on the part of his Mexican race. There are some absolute warriors in the history of combat sports, and many of them that are Mexican. So I think he will admit, also being humble and honest here, that certainly the opposite is true also. I wouldn't want anyone to think that, go looking to fight a Mexican for an easy fight, because I think you'll be wrong 95% of the time. Just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, and boxing obviously has shown that a lot. There are some tough Mexicans in MMA as well. It just happens to be some of the most high-profile ones are kind of fragile for some reason.
Yeah.
But I did hear as well. So and one thing was said that he was actually landed an illegal punch. Was another thing I read as well. Did anyone else read that? The punch that
Kane did?
Hit him on the chin, the uppercut. Yeah, no,
Ngannou.
I read it somewhere. Yeah, no, the punch that Ngannou threw, which apparently dropped him, because it was open-handed and sort of went round his neck. Apparently, that was even an illegal punch as well.
Bash,
yeah,
I
don't know. I definitely read that, and they circled it and zoomed in and everything. I was like,
although I never heard of any illegal punch unless it's the fingers sticking out with his eyes.
I think that's what it was.
A John Jones strike.
He got dropped in today.
Maybe.
He got short uppercut. Is the power that he possesses. I think they're still looking for Overeem's head still. A short uppercut like that is enough. Look what Brock Lesnar does. He might not be the most skilled, but look at the short punches that he can deliver. The Shane Carwin days. It doesn't take a lot with these big guys.
That's true. You guys should look for a quick video from Chael Sonnen, though. Chael saying that he was insistent it was a clear knockout until someone called him and he rewatched it and he said it looks like the punch missed. It looks like a punch was thrown that then turned into a push. And according to Chael Sonnen, who's a pretty sharp guy, he said after watching and rewatching and watching and rewatching and watching again, he said it was a punch that missed that turned into a push at the end. and then it looks like Kane was doing the splits, so to me, I believe that Kane shot in. He ran into a very physically strong guy, and the shot was blocked, and it stopped him in his tracks, and it buckled his knee. So I tend to be thinking like Chael, that I think that he wasn't hit really hard as much as he was pushed, and he ran into a brick wall on a bad takedown attempt, and his knee blew out.
I suppose, man, but call me cynical or whatever, but I just know that Kane's going to be injured for the next 5 fucking years now. So, do you know what I mean? Anyway, we've only got 5 minutes left, so let's say quickly. I'll try and get 2 more in before I wrap up. Miles Painter says, besides John Smith, what can Corey Stamen prove with a victory at 235?
Corey was on my show. He's from Michigan, like me. I won't talk too much because I want to give share the floor here, but I think he can prove a lot. I think getting caught with a knee bar from the back, backpack type of situation is unusual and unexpected, but you sure do want to tap out if you don't want to be out for a year or more, or possibly the rest of your career. So I think that Corey is going to prove something here. It's a short notice match for him, but a win will prove a lot, and I think he'll get back on track.
Who is he fighting?
I knew someone was going to throw that out.
Don't ask me.
I wasn't even aware he was on the card.
Alejandro Perez. I'll just
That's
Google
right.
it. Yeah.
Yes, Alejandro Perez.
Oh, he's pretty good.
He'll be Mexican. He'll be getting injured.
It is
No
a
doubt.
Mexican dude.
That's another one to think about.
No, that dude is tough. He's good, but no, yeah, Stamen's a legit prospect. If that's the matchup, I do expect him to win. Yeah.
Fair enough. One more then before we wrap up. G from the MMA Show, my man, is asking, is there too much fighter power now? You're always hearing of Tyrone wants to fight Fighter X, Cormier wants to fight Fighter Y, in brackets Brock. In the past, John Jones said of DC, he does not have enough followers to fight for my belt. Like he's asking, is there too much fighter power now, I guess.
So basically, do the fighters have more
leverage?
Power who they fight, opposed to the UFC matchmakers?
I wouldn't think so. I think it still comes down to whatever Dana White wants, and the WME, IMG, the owners are going to green light that, and fighters can say whatever they want, but I don't think Dana is wanting to give control in any regards to fighters, unfortunately. Well, maybe fortunately, but that's just my thought.
Yeah, and I think it's starting to get a little bit better now. Instead of trying to make all the big money fights, but there is that problem though where fighters do feel like they're being sidelined, especially with the news recently with Poirier. Original about 3 days ago, he wanted out of the UFC. He was sending up middle fingers to the UFC on their Twitter, and now he's fighting for a interim title shot.
Yep.
Yeah. Now he's back, but Ally Quinter was actually raging about the same thing.
Now.
Like, surely where's my title shot? I'm having good performance at the moment and all this sort of thing. So a lot of fighters feel like they are being sidelined, and big money fights and catchweight fights are trying to be made, especially when the news of GSP falling through with Khabib. That makes these other fighters in the division think, well, when's our opportunity? Are we working our way through here, and are we actually going to get a shot at the title? Because otherwise, are we going to have to wait just in case another superstar comes back or another catch fight comes on? So yeah, this is the issue, but I don't think the fighters have much control, but I believe if they do say no and demand they're not going to fight, I think they won't. They won't be forced into it.
Right.
I think I just think recently there's been so many. It seems like in the past, 9 months, 12 months. I don't know. I don't want to blame media or the fans or anything. I mean, the fighters are going to do what they're going to do, but it seems like these champ versus champ fights and people just trying to make these big money fights, it seems like those are the only fights where there seems to be some kind of people go one way or the other, because even now we're talking about Jones is taking on the rightful contender in Anthony Smith. Last month or earlier this month, Whitaker was supposed to take on Gastelum, and it seems like nobody gave Gastelum a chance. No one's giving Smith a chance. So I think the reason why these fights are getting a lot of attention is not just because WME, the UFC, Dana White, money. I think the fans are the only ones that are buying into it, like, oh, well, this guy can really beat him because he's a champ in another division, things like that.
Yeah, man, for sure. Guys, UFC 235 just round the corner. Set to be a cracking night of fights. I can't wait. So many cracking fights on this card, and it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I just want to, at this time, extend my thanks to the panel, starting with my mother from another brother. It's Victor Vargas. Victor, thank you so much for your time, man. Let everyone know all about iFox with Juice Podcast and all the great work you do online, my friend.
Yes, of course. No problem, John. Anytime. Thank you for having me on. Yes, I am at Juice_MMA on Twitter. And yes, my podcast, if you guys haven't heard it, it's iFox with Juice with my co-host, Rena Parsegan. We don't have a specific date. Some people have told me about this, that they kind of complain that we don't know when the date is, but it's usually around the weekend, sometime between Wednesday and Friday. So one of those days, keep an eyes out. But we've been on for 4 months now and publish weekly, so you guys won't miss out on an episode. But thanks again, John, for having me on.
Always a pleasure, man. To Chris Allen. Chris, thanks for coming on and let everyone know about MMA Fight Bible and what you've got coming up, mate.
Yeah, thanks, John. Appreciate you having me on as always. So yeah, I've got the Facebook page, MMA Fight Bible, latest videos, up-to-date stories, funny shit, all that sort of stuff, really entertaining stuff. Please feel free to visit. Instagram page as well. Also on Twitter at Chris Allen. That's capital C, capital A, MMA. Follow me on Twitter. I've started writing articles now as well for various MMA pages, but the main one I write for is mymmanews.com, so look out for articles, and yeah, hope you see more from me in the future.
Awesome stuff, man. Finally, to Colin Crandall. Colin, thank you again for coming back on the show. Let Martial Arts Chat podcast listeners know all about the MMA Power Hour.
I will. You're very welcome, John. Always a pleasure to be here. Really quick, I'd like to say on the behalf of you and Chris, when will there be a stacked UFC card here, either in Glasgow or in London? That's the question, right? Hopefully it's soon. I think you gentlemen would agree. So I hope so, because you guys deserve it. There's such a great fan base in the United Kingdom. So anyway, MMA Power Hour, you can catch us. Facebook has been our mainstay for just under 2 years now. We're now also on Fight TV, FITE TV. You can download that app. You'll be one of nearly 4 million people to do so. It's free of charge. They do have pay-per-view events that are optional for you to select, but they've also got some free programming and some good stuff there. And I think we're part of that great content. MMA Power Hour. We're just recently starting to put our content on YouTube as well. Originally, nearly 2 years ago, we did. That was really a rough cut of what we're doing now, though, so you would see that mostly, but we are starting to put the newer stuff on slowly and just progressing forward. So Facebook, MMA Power Hour. Our stuff usually goes over to our MMA Power Hour Twitter account, MMA Power Hour on Instagram, MMA Power Hour on YouTube, and the MMA Power Hour show on Fight TV. We'd love to have you to join us and watch and give your insight. And we consider you all more friends than fans, and love to have you participate.
Be sure to check it out, guys. And if you've liked this show, be sure to like us on facebook.com/Martial Arts Chat. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at Martial Arts Chat. If you want to subscribe here on Spreaker. Download the Spreaker app or search for us on iTunes for, you guessed it, Martial Arts Chat. I'm John Boy McElroy, and I'll catch you next time on the Roundtable.